Once you understand where your business is going to be set up, the type of interactions and contracts you're going to have with your customers, once you understand the basics of your business, registering the business is the next step that you would want to go through. What are the permits and licenses for local, state, and federal registration? Let's review the process for determining and creating a checklist for you to complete this work. So as we said before, registration depends on many factors, local, state, federal, industry, and more. And it also depends on the type of business entity that you're going to set up. So where and how your business is set up will determine the business structure requirements, how you're going to set up your business structure, what are the local requirements, state and federal requirements. And other issues are your internal and banking requirements. So how you're going to set up the processes and things that you're going to have to file for your internal business. So if you have employees, what are they going to give to you on a regular basis? And also, what paperwork do you need to provide the bank in order to get that business set up? Business relationship established. So let's look at the permits and licenses. So one thing we want to identify is what is the difference between a permit and a license. I generally say to my students that there's not much of a difference between the two. Sometimes you'll go to one city and they'll use the term business permit, and sometimes you'll go to another city and they'll say business license. So they could be very similar, but maybe different organizations may use them. But it's just a general term. Let's take a look. A permit is a legal document that offers proof of compliance with certain city or state laws regulating structural appearances, the safety, as well as the sale of products. So it allows you to sell this product, and it says you're under compliance with the regulations. Whereas a license is a legal document that grants a business the right to operate a business in your city. So depending on your business, there are other licenses that may also be required. So oftentimes you might get a business permit that permits you to run your business, and you might have a hair styling license that says you are certified to cut hair. And you would have to have both in order to run your business. So again, you'd have to look at what is the regulatory agency for your type of business, where you're located, and those would dictate which ones you need. Registration. Depending on your business structure, corporations are often registered at the state level, and based on your business structure type, you would want to create a checklist to help navigate the state constitution. So the state would dictate how you're going to get your business set up and what rules and regulations you have to follow. So again, an attorney can often help you create the checklist, but you can also look and use Google or the internet to help you. So there's oftentimes, if you just Google steps to file an LLC in California, you can find resources like NOLO that will offer you the steps or checklists. So I can't recommend any specific site for you to use, but just know that there's plenty of resources available to you to look. The question is, are you experienced enough to judge whether that's the best way to set up your business or not? Oftentimes when you hire an attorney, they can be expensive, yes, but they might save you from making very expensive mistakes. So you may want to consider consulting with an attorney to help you get your business set up. So let's look at the local requirements. Most common local requirements is some type of business permit or tax license, and this is basically registering with your county or city saying, I want to run this type of business in this area. And this is a way for the government to first start interacting with your type of business. So this is the most common one, and it's usually affordable. It can be less than $50 in most cities. And they typically last for 1 year. Another certificate you may want to look at is a resale certificate. This is really important if you plan on reselling goods. So if you're buying materials to make purses, for example, and you're going to sell those purses online to your customers, if you were to buy the materials in a store, they might charge you sales tax. So when you go to sell that product, you would charge your customers sales tax. So in order to having to pay sales tax and then charge your customers for sales tax, the government only wants sales tax collected on the final sale of that type of product. So if you're buying goods that will be resold, you can ask the city or state for a resale certificate, and that would allow you to buy supplies from your suppliers that you plan on reselling. You can get that tax-free. So that is called a resale certificate. If you're running your business under your own name, or if you're running it under a company name and you want to run the business as a different name, you can file for a doing business as or fictitious business name, and you are letting the city or government that's regulating names in your state, you can tell them, hey, I want to run it under a different name. And so this is the form that you would file in order to run it under a different name. This is really important if you want to receive payments from your customers and they are going to write a check, for example, out to your business name. If you don't have a doing business as certificate, then you can't take that check to the bank. Okay. Next is your tax ID number. Oftentimes, other businesses will want to know what type of business they're interacting with, and so they might ask you for a statement of information, and on this form it would ask for your business tax ID number. If you don't have an EIN number, an employer identification number, you would have to give them your social security number. So it's oftentimes you would want to file and get an EIN number, and the government would give you free of charge a separate tax ID number that you could use for your business, so that when customers ask for your statement of information, you don't have to provide them your social security number. You can provide them your tax ID number, which would be a different one. Also, if you're doing any permits, construction, fire, anything else, you would want to get these things done. A good source is the City of San Diego. Definitely has some links if you're setting up in San Diego about how to set up your business. State requirements. On a state level, the business formation type often determines your requirements. So the type of business, whether you're a limited liability company or a S Corp, for example, those may require the different permits and licensing you'll need. So some filing requirements at the state may include initial reports to set up your business. You might need to file an annual report. You might need to file a statement filing fee to retain your business in the state. You might have to pay your franchise tax or your sales tax. Then any articles of amendment. These are important changes. So these are often ongoing forms that you would have to pay to get your business, to keep your business in the state. On a federal level, the federal government largely assigns the state governments to regulate businesses, although there are a few types of businesses, especially if you're doing interstate commerce, you're transacting business among different state lines, then you may have to file and keep some federal licensing and permits. So, especially if you're dealing with interstate commerce with hazardous materials or things that the federal government wants to regulate, guns, for example. So on a federal level, you want to apply for your federal licenses and permits based on your industry. You'd want to pay your taxes on a federal level and then comply with any federal laws. So other requirements, within your own business, you set up processes. You might have monthly or daily statements that you would need to make. You might have annual meetings that you need to keep record of. And for banking, as I said previously, if you have a different name than your own name, you would need to show them your doing business as statement in order to allow the bank to accept those checks. And you may need to create a checklist. The best way of finding out what the bank needs for your business to get set up is just ask your bank. An example here is at Wells Fargo, you would type in your zip code and it would list, okay, for the type of business that you're set up in that zip code, this is what you would need. and it will say this. So for sole proprietor, you would need one of the following documents. You would need your business license if you have a fictitious business name, etc. For a limited liability company, you would need one of the following documents: articles of organization, certificate of organization, certificate of formation. Corporation would need these. So generally, just go to Ask Your Bank and they'll let you know what you need. So the final is to make a checklist. If you are operating in the state of California, they make this amazing website called calgold.ca.gov, and you can click on that. And in the workbook assignment, we have the checklist for you. We've created it for you, and that's your assignment. But CalGold says enter your state or city. So if you're operating in San Diego, go to calgold.ca.gov. And if you're going to be operating in San Diego, you can type in San Diego. Please note that if you type in San Diego, it's not what first pops up. It's down there unless you're in Chula Vista in San Diego County or something. So if you're going to be operating in the city of San Diego, click that. And if you're operating, let's say, a car wash, you'd be here. And you can search, and it does a great job. And you'll see you can look at the level of government that it's going to select. You're selecting all of them. If you don't click anything, you're going to look at all the levels of government, and it's going to tell you all of them, and starting with the city, then county, regional, state, and federal. And it's going to say everything you need for this type of business. So it's a directory of organizations that regulate this type of business, starting in the city of San Diego, and it will list the organization. It will have their phone number, their address, and their website. So what I suggest to you is don't freak out, because if you scroll down this list, you're like, oh my gosh, there's so many. I have to do all of these. That is not necessarily the case. It's going to list you all the things that you would probably need. So if you are going to build or construct a car wash, then you would need a building and construction permit. And this is where you would need to get them. So this is only if you're going to be doing building and construction. If you're not, you go down to the next one. And you answer this question, do I need this permit? Do I need this license? And if you're not doing that, then the answer is most likely no. If you have a question, you can look up their website, or you can call them to ask, hey, do I need this for this type of business? And they can answer. So most times you won't need it, only if you're doing this type of work. So business license, you will probably need this because you're going to be doing business within the city limits. Okay, so if you're going to do business there, yes, you will need that. Put that on your checklist. Fire safety regulations. Every business is subject to an annual inspection. Okay, so if I'm going to have people on board, I probably need to have a City of San Diego do a fire inspection. So this is probably something I need to do, yes. Industrial waste. Yes, we're going to be discharging of our waste, and it looks like the city of Brawley is handling that. Okay, so again, this is the website, so I would always want to figure out, am I doing it through City of Brawley or City of San Diego? It looks like they're the same one, so I might need to check where my water is being dumped, and depending on which, I might need that permit. So go through this. If I'm not hiring employees, I probably don't need a minimum wage program, right? Okay, so just go through all this and see what you need. A car wash is probably one of the more highly regulated types of businesses, because you're probably going to have employees, you're probably going to have waste, you're probably going to have safety concerns. So this is the type of business where you're going to see a lot more regulation, okay? So going back to this, go to the website and check it out, and this is going to help you the most in creating that checklist. All right? And we'll do the walkthrough of the assignment in a bit.